and then go to Think Central and work on quadrilaterals to get some extra practice so you have this down. Once again, this is one of those things as a fifth grader we have to have down in order to move on to the sixth grade. So we need to understand about quadrilaterals a little bit more. Also remember that you need to check out your answers for quadrilaterals last week and read the comments. A lot of you had a misunderstanding with a few of these shapes, so I want to go over them with you so that we can get these figured out. Then once again on Thursday, I'll reset your answer so that you can change your red dots, or some of you have yellow dots too. You can change those so you can get green dots and get a higher grade in math with that, okay? Alright, so quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals are polygons. Remember, polygons have straight sides, no openings, okay, and have at least 3 sides and no curved sides. So quadrilateral, quad means 4, so these are the 4-sided polygons, okay? Here on your screen you have a couple of them. This one's just a quadrilateral because it has 4 sides, no openings, and no curves, okay? So that would just be a quadrilateral. Now this one here is the one that gave us, a lot of us, fits on our homework last week, was called a trapezoid, okay? And it's because the definition, you have to be very careful with a trapezoid. What a trapezoid is it has at least one pair of parallel sides. Now parallel are like train tracks, right? So they run side by side, and if they went on forever they would never touch. Well, looking at this one here, this one and this one, they're parallel to each other. These two are not, okay? But it's still a trapezoid because it has at least one pair of parallel sides. Now, where we got confused on our homework last week was like squares, rectangles, parallelograms. Those we were looking at and say, well, those aren't trapezoids. They have more than one pair of sides. That's okay, because it says at least one pair of parallel sides. So trapezoids could have 2 pairs of parallel sides. So a square is actually a trapezoid. A rectangle is actually a trapezoid. Okay? So if you see both sets are parallel, it's still a trapezoid. Let's look at a couple others. A square. A square has 4 equal sides. Look at your tick marks here. It has 4 equal sides. It also has to have 4 90-degree angles, okay? And they always label them with these little square-looking labels, okay? This is a square. This one looks like a square because it has 4 equal sides. You can see by the tick marks, but these are not 90-degree angles, okay? If they're not 90-degree angles and they're 4 equal sides, that's called a rhombus. Now, what I usually tell kids is a rhombus is like a square that's been blown over in a windstorm. Okay? It has 4 equal sides, but it no longer has 90-degree angles. Now, one thing that's important to note, in a rhombus, the opposite angles are always congruent or the same. Okay? But not all 4 are. Because if you look at it, one of them's, like this one's acute, this one's obtuse, right? This one's acute, and this one's obtuse. So the opposite angles are congruent in a rhombus, okay? But not all 4 are. Okay, the next one's a rectangle. Rectangles, the definition of that is the opposite sides have to be the same length. So if you notice, these are opposite sides. They're the same length because of the tick marks. These opposite sides are the same length because of the tick marks. And it also has to have 4 90-degree angles. Has to have it. Okay, now what's interesting is a square, let's back up and look at the square here, opposite sides are the same length. Opposite sides are the same length, and it has 4 90-degree angles. So a square is also a rectangle. Okay, it's both of them. All squares are also rectangles because the opposite sides are the same length, and it has 4 90-degree angles. But not all rectangles are squares, obviously. This one does not look like a square. Okay, so just remember a rectangle, opposite sides are the same length, and it has to have 4 90-degree angles. Now the last one is called a parallelogram. Okay, parallel, remember, runs side by side like train tracks, and they never touch if they go on forever and ever and ever. Now if you look at this one, these two are parallel, and these two are parallel. So if the opposite sides are parallel, that's called a parallelogram. Okay? Now, this is not a rhombus. Some of you guys thought this was a rhombus. If you remember, a rhombus, all four sides have to be the same length like a square, and they're not. So this is not a rhombus. This is a parallelogram. Now, look at this rectangle up here. This is also a parallelogram because the opposite sides are parallel. Okay? Let's take a look at a couple of these. So this first quadrilateral, and by the way, they name them off their corners, so A, B, C, D. Okay, this one has, I believe, 3 names. See if you can figure out what 3 names are for this shape. All right, so one of them is quadrilateral, obviously, because it has 4 sides. It's closed in and no curved sides. Is it a rectangle? No, it doesn't have 90 degrees. Is it a rhombus? No, it doesn't have the tick mark showing us that they're the same length. Is it a parallelogram? Yes, it is. Opposite sides are parallel. Is it a square? No. Is it a trapezoid? Yes, it is, because it has at least 1 pair of parallel sides. This one actually has 2 pair. Okay, but it has to have at least 1 pair. So those are the 3 names of that quadrilateral. Let's try another one. How about this one? So this one is going to have 4 names on this one. Which 4 names? Okay, let's start with the easy ones. Obviously it's a quadrilateral because it has 4 sides. This is obviously a rectangle because it has 90-degree corners and the opposite sides are equal. This is also a parallelogram because the opposite sides are parallel. Okay, and the fourth one is a trapezoid. Remember, at least 1 pair of parallel sides. This one has 2 pair, so it fits that definition of a trapezoid. Let's try another one. Okay, this one has 2. What 2 names would go with this shape? Okay, it has 4 sides, so this is a quadrilateral. And then this is also a trapezoid because it has at least 1 pair of parallel sides. These 2 are parallel, these 2 are not. Okay, so it fits a trapezoid. It's not any of these other 4. Okay, so those are quadrilaterals. Hopefully now you understand what a trapezoid is. That was the big one that a lot of us missed. What a trapezoid is, what a rhombus is. Okay, make sure you keep those square. Now those pages that are attached in Google Classroom could help you too if you get stuck. Now I want you to go to Think Central and work on quadrilaterals. Make sure that you do not do the red dot. Okay, and I think it's chapter 11 lesson 3. It should be called quadrilaterals. Okay, so practice those and get those 6 names down.